Hey everyone, Brian and Chris here from Work to Game, and today we're diving into the latest and surprising letter from Yoshi-P. Chris has covered this on Gaming Kinda, so if you want to just go watch his response, his thoughts on it, we're going to do that today. But he's going to be taking me through this. I have not yet read this letter. He is the expert in this case, so we're always interested in your thoughts below. But let's go ahead and dive in. We've been playing New World all day, guys. That video is coming soon. Subscribe to the channel if you want our thoughts. You can see Chris's reaction on Twitch right now, and it's priceless.
He's the expert there. I haven't played. I've done character creation, and I'm in queue.
And he's smiled and laughed the whole time and said, "Why don't other games do this?" Anyway, no more New World talk. We're talking Final Fantasy XIV here. Chris, let's go ahead and add it in here. Let's go ahead and do this. Take us through. What do we got? What do we got?
He's got it. All right. So for anybody new, just as a prerequisite, sometimes our director and producer Yoshi-P Naoki Yoshida does write letters to us, usually around times of great rejoicing, times like anniversaries, big milestones, but also around times when there's issues. This is in the latter, and I think that this is something that I would group as an apology letter. But when we talk about this more in context, like apology is also kind of not the perfect description for what the post is. Greetings, Final Fantasy XIV players. This is your producer and director Naoki Yoshida. First and foremost, I'd like to extend my thanks to all of you for your continued support. Development on our latest expansion pack, Endwalker, continues as we focus on implementing content and transitioning to the check and polish phase. Expectations for 6.0 are high and have resulted in an increased interest in Final Fantasy XIV, especially in North America and Europe, where we are currently experiencing an extreme influx of new players. Today, I would like to go into detail about the server congestion result from this influx and the steps we are taking to address it. The message is a long one, so please bear with me. So, as far as player population growth goes, as mentioned above, Final Fantasy XIV is currently experiencing a dramatic increase in its player base. This increase is not only limited to the global version served by Japanese, North America, and European data centers, but it is also the locally operated Chinese and Korean versions as well.
No shock there. That's the thing, and it's not immediately apparent, but one of the things is that with WoW's popularity, when you go look at it, even if it's dipped down in America, China and Korea have continued on. Like, we have never really impacted them. But we've been seeing that that's already the case, is that's already being impacted, because one part of it I have to assume is as gold farmers, like, hey, wait a minute, there's a shift. We need to be over here. We got to be farming that gold. But anyway, continue.
I think some people will be shocking because they associate the Fat Black Chocobo campaign, they associate streamers, and those things aren't something where we have as much overlap with the more locally run communities where there's censorship is a factor,
right,
on release schedules. Recently, we have experienced record user numbers in all regions, with a vast amount of new players beginning their adventures. In particular, the increase in North America and European region players over the last 2 weeks has been both so staggering and unexpected that many players are now having difficulty logging in or creating new characters due to server congestion. And for this, we deeply apologize.
Even though, and we've said this before, like, if somebody was like, of course it's from Asmongold. Like, Asmon has played a big role. One of the reasons why we were excited that he was going to finally check out this game. But the other side of it is that, from a content creation perspective, this continues to show the value that content creators bring. And you might feel like I'm patting myself on my own back. You know what? Screw Work to Game. Literally just the fact that, like, somebody can come in and then this just creates a domino effect. You can discount them all you want, but I think essentially what this will also start to entail is just how big of an impact the right, like, streamer, the right person for the right game can have on a gaming community. And I think this is going to be something you see play out for the next 10 years. Sorry, go ahead.
So raising simultaneous login caps. The population that can be logged into each world server at one time is capped. However, as some of you have noticed, this cap is not the same for all servers and differs somewhat between data centers, Mana, Aether, Chaos, etc. The main reason for this has to do with a data center's matching server. A matching server can only handle so much information, so to ensure that it functions properly, a capacity limit must be set. This limit determines the overall maximum population of a data center, which is then divided by the number of worlds in the data center to calculate how many players can be logged into each world. If a matching server were to overload, it would result in the duty finder ceasing to function properly and instability when entering instanced content, hence the importance of login caps.
We saw
this is not
yeah.
entirely different from like how ISPs manage like your local neighborhood here in the US. A lot of times it's handled by a neighborhood box, and it does have caps, and it starts to throttle people rather than waiting until it fails. The electrical system in your house is not wildly different than this.
Yeah, and we saw this actually happen with ARR. One of the things that when ARR launched, they ran into issues, so they put this kind of in place to help essentially stabilize it, because we saw duty finders crashing, hard to get in, everything was kind of futzing itself around. But yeah, anyway, that's kind of a callback to 2.0 originally.
And actually, going into Shadowbringers, we split the North American data centers from 2 to 3, and Europe from 1 to 2. And then did JP have one as well? And that was really traumatic. There was a big presentation about it where they spent a lot of time talking about this isn't great, but this is where we are, and this is how we think that we can give a better experience going into Shadowbringers, because the Stormblood launch had issues. And so it was them learning from past mistakes and saying, how do we avoid just letting this happen over and over? Oh, another Final Fantasy expansion, another Ralbon Extreme. No. We had one. We saw the mistake. We learned from the mistake. And yes, there are going to be downsides to this, but this is how we avoid the previous downsides.
Yep.
So differences in login caps occur due to differences in the number of worlds per data center, as well as differences in the matching server performance. As it happens, the matching server used in North America data centers were recently upgraded to higher performance models. Continued optimization of this new equipment has allowed us, as of July 16th, this is being published on July 20th, and we just moved into 5.5.8 today, so this is prior, to increase the maximum number of simultaneous logins across North American data centers by 18,000, or approximately 750 per world server. Do you know what the previous numbers were, Brian? Like, I don't have any context. Did we jump from 10,000 to 18,000? Did we jump from, were we at 100,000 plus 18,000? Like, I don't have any concepts for these.
There's about 6 to 8, I guess, worlds per data center, if you think about the math in that regard. So whatever that math is times 750 is essentially the boost. 1,800, so you would know whatever it is now. So by 1,800, you minus the world server times 750, and then you get the result. Sorry, I don't actually have that mathematics for you. All right.
This is a number I'll try to store so that next time it comes up, I'm like, oh, they increased it by 18,000 last time. That gives us some context to whatever the next number is that they choose to reveal.
Yeah.
A matching server upgrade for the European data centers, while currently planned for the immediate future, however, is still pending. As such, until the upgrade is implemented, it will be difficult for us to raise world login caps to the same degree as those of the North American worlds. That said, the team is currently working hard to optimize existing servers in an attempt to increase the caps, if by a smaller amount, and will continue to endeavor to make continued adjustments and improvements while maintaining game stability. Despite the aforementioned cap increase, over the weekend of July 17th and 18th, so this is leading up to today, but after the 16th change on North America, several of the North American world servers experienced periods of 6 to 7 hours at maximum login capacity over the weekend. So for 6 to 7 hours of peak times over the weekend, they were at capacity.
Yeah.
Resulting in login queues. As a result, character creation was unavailable for long periods of time, and players individually here, players faced average login wait times of 10 to 20 minutes. I think it's unbelievable that they were basically at capacity for 7 hours straight and kept individual, how much it cost each individual person down to a number that reasonable. For players residing on worlds in the European data center, weekend login wait times were as high as 40 minutes longer.
Yeah.
We deeply apologize for the situation in both regions. This is a big difference.
That's huge.
I don't remember WoW writing an explicit apology around the launch of Classic. I remember them talking about how excited they were about how successful it was. I remember them talking about how excited they were so many people were interested. I don't remember them coming out immediately after launch and saying, we are so sorry that this is so far below maybe your expected experience, when 10 to 20 minutes is not that bad.
Right.
New World hasn't issued an apology, and I'm in a 30-minute queue as we record this.
They already have. But yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for the question.
It's on the forums. Yeah.
It's already issued, so they already issued an apology today.
They said sorry that we're taking it down. This is what
That's
the time frame is
unbelievable.
expected.
Like, okay, thank you for correcting that. I'm used to people not apologizing. I'm used to people at least taking several days or doing it way after the fact. I don't know. This feels good. I don't
want to derail because this will be a part of the other video, but literally once you actually get in after the server queue stuff, I'm interested in 1 hour.
My expectations for New World, by the way, are incredibly low. If it was
that's the best part. That's the best part. Everybody's going like, I don't know about this game. And it's like, see, here's the thing. New World, Ashes of Creation. Here's the expectations. I hear New World's going to suck. That's what I've been hearing online. Why are you talking about New World, Brian? This game's going to suck. Ashes of Creation is going to save the MMO genre. So all New World has to do is not suck. Ashes has to save the genre. So it's like,
which Yoshi-P is setting the bar here for. So
exactly.
Like Yoshi-P is setting the bar right 100%. Now in this letter. Like this is the bar. So how does this actually affect things? Character creation and login wait times. When a world server reaches maximum capacity, any additional players attempting to log in will be placed in a queue and must wait until a player already on the server logs out before being admitted. As character creation requires a player to be logged in order to write newly created character data to the database, new characters cannot be created while the server is full. While we regret having to do so, we would humbly ask two things of our players to ensure that new players have the opportunity to create characters. First, we ask that those not actively engaged in the game log out rather than remain logged in during idle. Second, we request that you avoid creating new characters during peak congested times. I know that with my sister, so that she's getting into the critically acclaimed trial right now.
Yes.
I suggested to her, I said, especially because she plays in EU and we're already struggling with time zone differences. So it's really easy for us to overlap in a time that's not peak hours.
Yeah.
So we'll line up in a non-peak hour. And we'll go through character creation with her together. I'll do that remotely and be there to share that experience with her. And that's just a way of giving her the best experience, and it keeps it from just helping offload the people who can't afford that flexibility. And I've seen people already upset about the 30-minute AFK timer being brought back. I don't know what to tell you. It was there on launch. So
yeah, like that's the right play. More players playing the game. If you're not doing anything and getting hit by that
I don't know
timer,
why it ever goes away. I think it's ridiculous that I could forget to log out and technically like I could go away.
I think essentially setting it to where you're not, if you're during the non-crazy time that we're in now, an hour, like I don't think setting it to an hour is unreasonable. So if like you got to step away, go run and grab something, like, oh, you're not hurting anybody because literally there's no queue. But now it had to come back. It came back. And if you're upset about it, like just play or let somebody else play. Like don't be holding that spot. You're not, no one's winning or losing.
Right. Okay. You guys go down. So as mentioned above, those who log in while the server is congested may experience login queues, which allows players into the server at a reduced rate in the order that they join the queue. So this is just the size of the doorway is only so narrow. So even though there's room on the other side, we've got to funnel you into a line and let people through in the order they queued in. Login queues occur for two reasons. The first is that the act of logging in temporarily increases the initial server's load. And so when a world experiences a large number of players attempting to log in at once, it may become overloaded and crash. This is best avoided by staggering logins, right? So this is being respectful of the size of the doorway. The second is explained as earlier that the world has a maximum login capacity. In such cases, players only may be admitted when other players log out. And so this is, the doorway is plenty open, but there are too many people on the other side of the doorway. So we need to wait for somebody to leave before we can let you in. Kind of like when you go to like a nightclub or something.
Exactly.
We ask that you patiently remain in the queue should you encounter wait times. These queues are necessary to ensure that servers remain stable while providing a safe, fair means for players to enter the game during periods of increased user activity. Please note that in order to prioritize our paying customers, the login queue is not available using the free trial version, regardless of whether it occurs due to a surge in logins or due to capacity. Logging in will only be available for these players after a world's login queue is cleared. We once again apologize for the inconvenience, but ask your understanding on this point. I will tell you, people in chat have already said with free trials, they're still seeing the small queues, like the little 47s. So it does seem like if the server's really not anywhere close to capacity, it is still letting them get in line to get through the doorway. So I assume that this is a translation thing telling you, here's what's going to happen when server starts to get close to capacity. And we have to start
fulfilling
our financial obligation first.
Free trial players sorry, like upgrade to the full version, I guess, if you want that priority access. And this is it's so fascinating because we have not seen that be a problem yet, but it makes sense, right? Because it's the financial obligation to the player who's paid money and is expecting service as opposed to a free trial. Are you having a good time with a free trial? Like if you don't want that limitation, I guess it's time to upgrade if you can get a key, as long as they're like still issuing those out. What a crazy world we live in right now. Left is right, up is down.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely a boardroom meeting where like, you got 4 or 5 people coming in with different ideas and they all have something bad about them. So it's not like, man, I can't wait to punish free trial players. This is our chance. We got them. No. Like this, you got a bunch of bad options here. Just making the best of a situation that there's nothing they can do about. Now, automatic logout. We've seen this in the past. This is not new, but it's back. As an emergency measure to combat congestion, we are also planning the early implementation of the auto logout feature originally slated for the expansion launch with the patch of patch 5.58. That is today. If no input is detected from a character for an extended period of time, I believe the patch notes set it at 30 minutes, the character will be automatically logged out of the game. This feature will be further expanded to address the surge of logins expected for the launch of Endwalker. Keep in mind, guys, there are ways that the game avoids doing this. I've said this in every previous post where I've mentioned it. If I see those down below, I'm going to delete those comments. So that's not the point here. Get back to the core focus. And to the people that do that, just know that if that becomes like a big toxic trend, like I wouldn't be mad at all if Square Enix had to do something about those. And some of those things, like that would make the game objectively worse for all of us, because people couldn't be trusted with something. So
right.
Just making that clear. I'm not going to state what they are. People know what they are, but just making that clear.
Yeah.
We understand that this feature will not be the most popular with our players. Fact. But we would like to assure you that it is an effective means to temporarily combat congestion. We apologize for any inconvenience its implementation may cause, and thank you for bearing with us to ensure that the game remains accessible during this time. I think this is totally reasonable. Like,
100%.
Saying that there's
right call.
Like saying, I'm sitting here listening to a band play and I get up from my seat and I go, hey, I'm going to take off. I'm like, when you come back? I don't know.
No.
Well, there's like 20 people outside that really want to hear this band play. Well, what are you going to do? They can't have my chair. Like that's such a jerk move.
I pooped in it.
Brian Manilow is much more mature than
somebody. Oh yeah, Brian Manilow back, baby. Somebody clip that for me and tweet that to me, please. I want to highlight that. Go ahead.
So, additional worlds and data centers. A fundamental solution to congestion is an increase in world servers, as well as the addition of data centers. We've seen this in the past. Mm-hmm. As we have already announced, we are currently in the final stages of preparing our new Oceanic data center. With that announcement, they did confirm they regrettably did not believe it would be ready in time for Endwalker. At the same time, we have been moving forward with plans to expand even further, putting wheels into motion in the form of approving budgets, securing funding, and purchasing equipment. They mentioned this in the 14-hour broadcast as millions of dollars set aside for this. We intended to assess the number of users and planned content after the release of 6.0, and then work to have new servers or data centers prepared for 7.0. The current situation, however, has compelled us to reevaluate this timeline and determine if it's possible to speed up the process. There are, however, 2 obstacles that stand in our way. Problem 1, insufficient servers due to semiconductor shortage. The COVID-19 pandemic has seen an extreme drop in semiconductor production in factories across the globe. This, coupled with an increased demand for electronics due to more people from working home, has resulted in an international shortage of conductors that in turn has resulted in a prolonged delay in the delivery of servers we ordered for our data centers. We have even looked into investing more than market value to speed up delivery, but to no avail. We are not giving up, however. We are in continued talks with vendors from around the world to find a timely solution to this problem.
I honestly wonder if at some point Microsoft, Google, or Amazon come into play. I wonder if that ends up becoming a fast track to, that deal makes a lot of sense, being able to virtualize, cloudify their servers. Now that in and of itself, I can't imagine the cost and the time and the meetings and the signatures, but that's essentially what I wonder if we see end up happening, because already today with Amazon Game Studios, like the servers have been insanely stable. If New World launches the way it is playing today, outside of hey, we're still beta testing.
I mean, AWS is like a third of the internet. So
it is, right.
What are you going to do?
What are you going to do? Anyway, let's continue on. It's just, my mind's My mind's racing.
So that's the first thing. Keep in mind, guys, this extends to all industries. Like, this is what's stopping car production. This is what's stopping. This is a huge issue. So for those of you that have taken part in new console roulettes, or you've gone and tried to get hands on a new car at a reasonable price, or you've gone and tried to order a graphics card, this should not be news to anybody that's done that. But if you haven't been paying attention, if you've been avoiding global news, this is where you can't even avoid it in your fantasy worlds anymore.
Right.
Problem 2, travel restrictions. As we touched upon briefly at the Digital Fan Festival, global travel restrictions due to the pandemic have prevented our server infrastructure team from physically visiting the data center locations, causing a considerable reduction in work efficiency. While over the past year and a half, the team has managed to work remotely with overseas staff on the Oceanic data center, it has been a challenge that our staff will have to face once again as we look to expand server capacity in Europe or North America. That said, many members of the team have been proactively getting their COVID vaccinations and are looking into options such as vaccine passports as we plan for in-person visits to the data centers. Of course, even should the opportunity to travel arise, we will respect each staff member's opinion on the matter and put their safety first.
Dude, I love Yoshi-P. Hands down. A, we just already touched on it. Why hasn't WoW ever apologized for bullcrap? And then B, putting his team first. This is what he did with the development of Shadowbringers, making it the most like critically and well-rated thing. Putting people first, I think, leads to better games, better people, better working conditions, and I'll end my rant there.
I mean, it doesn't mean that other games aren't doing this, but you have to tell us. Otherwise, wild speculation. Like I said, as New World issued an apology already, I didn't expect them to within a few hours. I didn't think that was original, and you were there to correct me immediately. Like, the benefit of being public, the benefit of being transparent is that you allow your players to feel heard, to feel supported, and to be that correction. So when false information or misunderstood information or just questions arise, somebody is there to answer, and you don't allow speculation to just drive this circle. Yep. There are things about WoW devs that I objectively know not to be true that just spread. But I know that because I've had interactions with people who have been on those teams. For people that don't, there isn't any publicly accessible information. And so it's easy it's like, well, I don't know that it's not true. There's nobody saying that they, I can't prove for a fact that they, and insert blank statement here. But with Yoshi-P's team, he states things clearly and repeatedly. We will continue to closely monitor the situation as in other countries, and once it has been deemed safe and efficient, given mandatory quarantines, etc., we'll take further steps towards resuming on-site work overseas. Though the obstacles that still face us are many, we believe that the best, most effective method for providing our players a stress-free gameplay experience is through the introduction of new servers and data centers. To see this goal realized as soon as reasonably possible, we on the development, operations, and infrastructure team pledge to continue to do our utmost. So I was fine up to this point. Like, I just had to push through, Brian. Like this is where this kind of just is a gut check and really reminded me what the core difference with 14 is. Mm-hmm. And this is a feeling. It's not an objective fact. It's not actually a statement of how much the devs care or work. This next section, just to kind of put that out as a precursor, them sharing this with us is this connection is something that's hard to put into objective measure.
Okay.
So in conclusion, as producer, the responsibility for being unable to predict the current influx of new players falls to me. The days before an expansion's launch are supposed to be the ones of excitement, but instead they brought many players grief, and for that, I personally am extremely sorry. For years, we have watched devoted players from around the world stream their time with Final Fantasy XIV, and now we sit in awe while new fans join their ranks. As we enter our final push in the development of Endwalker, it is this constant flow of positive energy that motivates all of us on the development and operations team to carry on. Nothing can compare to the feeling we get watching you enjoy playing the game we've created. We are aware of the burden we have placed on our player base and are working to diligently to lighten it in the coming weeks and months. We will continue to develop measures to combat server congestion, and will keep you up to date with any and all developments in this area. Thank you once again for your continued support. Naoki Yoshida, Final Fantasy XIV producer and director.
Man, this guy, he's the model. Like, he's the model.
He's the bar. He's the bar.
He's the bar. Setting
not
a new
because
bar.
he needed to be. There is no, like, this should not be what game director and producer has on a LinkedIn profile, job update, you know, like whatever.
Yeah.
Indeed.com, hiring director of MMO.
Yeah.
Like, this is not something you can put into words. It's not something you can put on resume. Will deliver heartfelt apology when things outside of my control and overwhelming success bring my game to its knees while I'm already working 100-hour work weeks. Like,
that's the leader. That's a leader, though. The leader is somebody who's like, it falls on me. Yoshi-P has continued to be the leader that Square Enix has needed for a long time, and the fruits have yet to even begun to be paid off. They have paid off, but they have yet, like, the harvest, I think, is coming for Final Fantasy, for Square Enix. And a lot of it has to do with somebody who gives a damn.
I mean, this feels like that's the beginning of that harvest, right?
Yeah.
You know, my wife and I have put in a garden over COVID, like the rest of the world that wasn't making sourdough. And with the first year, we didn't get that good of a yield. We put a ton of work in and we didn't get that good of a yield. And we showed up and we went again.
Yeah.
And now this year, the moment tomatoes started to come off the vine, we had more plants, better soil, better care. And the moment it started to come off, we got overwhelmed. And so we've had to give tomatoes to friends and family because there's just too many. There's a whole drawer of cucumbers in my fridge right now. There's just too much stuff coming out of the garden. And so this is the beginning of that.
Mm-hmm.
And what sets him apart as their harvest becomes to come in is not, let's sit back, our work is done. It's okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now, how is all of this good news something that I can learn from and do even better moving forward? How is this an area that I can avoid the mistakes when right now there's so much success that when somebody mentions the 10% of things they should be doing poorly, you and I, as somebody who tries to view the game completely and does sometimes focus on that 10% too much from many members of the communities, we get that backlash. There is a huge portion of the community that would be perfectly content saying it's a small enough percentage, don't even talk about it.
Yeah.
And yet Yoshi-P says, no, let's dive in. Let's keep chasing 100% perfection.
Yeah. And my final thought, I want to actually kind of echo what Casual Nerd Jason says. This is the man you kind of want to work for. This is the one that you want to give your business. This is somebody that continues to do what you want these companies to do. What you want WoW to come out and say, hey, we messed up and here's how we're going to fix it, and etc. What you want, what we've wanted as gamers to say, like putting that reality, we're going to put our people first. I know that you want an ultimate. I want to get you an ultimate, but we have to put our people first. Otherwise, there's not going to be any more ultimates because people aren't going to want to work for you. People aren't going to believe in you. People aren't going to support you. It's the, I always kind of tease my dad. My dad's a CFO. And he says, whenever they put a CFO in charge of a company, that's when you get out. Because they'll nickel and dime that out of somebody. They'll be like, no, it's not worth that $100,000 for, you know, us taking care of you. And then all of a sudden, everything starts to fail and fail and fail. But Yoshi-P has got the support of Square Enix, and he's got the support of the community. And the man is coming out and saying this because it's succeeding. Because Final Fantasy is number one.
He continues to show humility.
Yeah.
He continues to remind us that he's a person, that he loves playing this game and working on this game, and he views that as a privilege. He views that as his life's work, and it is not something to be rested on. And as long as he can maintain that attitude, you know, I think there was a time when WoW had that attitude and was experiencing success. As long as he can maintain that attitude and we can feel it, I don't see how this game does anything but continue to go up.
Yeah.
Will it have issues? Yes. That's how we got here. ARR was not perfect. Heavensward was not perfect. Stormblood was not perfect. But every expansion, there are problems that were systematically wrong with the previous expansion that are just absent from the next one.
Yeah.
They're just gone. Not, oh, sorry, that slipped by us a second time. They're just gone.
Yeah.
They don't typically come back.
Yeah.
And it actually, like, as a result, we've seen things like the squadron system give way to the trust system because they look at something and they say, there's a problem here and we've got to move forward. And it's slow and it's iterative and it's steady. We get reliable patches. They're not saying, oh, well, this squadrons aren't good, so let's just toss them entirely. It's like, no, squadrons aren't doing what squadrons are supposed to do. So let's rebuild a system that does what squadrons were aimed to do. Let's, with today's knowledge, let's build trusts to take up the torch where squadrons left off. It's this continued support for the community. And the fact that it's success across all regions is what counters. Yes, is it important that your favorite big streamer is playing? Yes, it is. But this is so much bigger than any one person.
Yeah. Yeah. Well said, guys. If you guys want, be sure to check out Chris's video. Incredibly well done up over on Gaming Kinda. You can hang out with him on Twitch. Tomorrow, I think we might be both streaming New World. Who knows? I'm not going to commit Chris to that. But at the end of the day, thank you guys for checking out this video. For Brian and Chris, you're amazing. You're awesome. You're fantastic. Thanks for being here. We'll see you next time.